so much for this fascinating presentation. I've got now, first of all, we have a number of questions, but I would like to ask you, the participants, because, you know, the Center for Historic Houses has three stakeholders. Number one, primarily the owners of historic houses or those custodians of historic houses, and then heritage experts, and then the public. So I just like to know from you, and especially William, you've got so much experience with the European houses. So how has this been for you to now learn about the houses in India? What are the kind of similarities? What is different? And to what extent did you all feel you have been participating? That this is something useful, that this is something really interesting that might be, spark something, an initiative or something, or confirmation of something that you are doing.
Mimi, if I can start, maybe just say that I think it's so inspiring to hear these stories, you know, from examples of houses that have never been open to the public before, or have been never lived in before, or have just been sort of disconnected from their communities. And I think it's seriously inspiring to me, as someone who lives in the sort of glorious world of having villages on my doorstep who all love coming to historic houses to have a cup of tea because it's a national sport in this country, visiting historic houses. It's really inspiring and amazing to see that. That's the overriding thing for me, that, you know, this connection with heritage that people want to feel, but they don't necessarily know how. We have to help them to engage with the heritage through interpretation, through openness, through welcoming, and that family sense of, you know, allowing people in. That's, for me, the overriding thing that comes out.
Thank you. And now, Akshita, maybe the other way around, someone from a historic house in India, seeing what people are doing in Europe and their challenges and so on. So how is this to you? You are very familiar with the Indian context. How is it if you are, you know, learning about the European houses?
Yeah, I'd actually been for an event in Paris. It was a debutante. It's called Les Bals des Débutantes, and that was the first time I was in a room with other families, and it was really interesting because our conversations went back to the same thing. We were talking about hobbies, and they said tourism and a bit of policy, and our families are a little bit interested in, you know, farming and gardening. And I was like, do you all have a historical property? Because we kind of seem to do the same thing no matter what we study, because our family legacies become, you know, whether you studied art, an art degree or an engineering degree, you build it back to come back and become a leader in the community you're from. It becomes intrinsic because it's so much the story of our family. But I think what's inspiring from Europe is there, and, you know, Mimi, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for this. There hasn't been a lot of knowledge sharing. So I'm 20. I just turned 28. My birthday was actually 2 days ago. I don't have the information or mentors because all I can rely on is past anecdotes. And it wasn't very easy for the generation before me to sort of make that switch because they were so much more caught in it. It was much more recent for India. It was only the 70s when they really stopped getting any kinds of subsidy, which in any way was quite paltry to the sum of our national GDP, but also what was needed for families like this to sort of sustain themselves. So what's inspiring is when, you know, I saw the concerts, or I see like making jam and pickle, and it sounds crazy, but I don't think my grandmother envisioned it. And now I'm sitting and talking to someone across the sea saying, yeah, we're trying to make our own jam too. How do we brand and label this? Because, you know, to explain to my grandmother, I'm going to be going to the local bazaar with like, you know, Belgata Palace jams. Like, it was just like, I remember she used to be on the balcony with these silver binoculars, and she kept seeing the first time we opened it up to a local crowd for an arts exhibition. And we had to keep telling her our friends were over because we didn't know how to break it to her that there would just suddenly be, there was no boundary between the public and the private. And, you know, I think someone said that beautifully, that I can keep saying it's a historical property, but it is my home. You are having the, and so many times people come in here and they say, you know, well, where is our butler? And, you know, why aren't we driving the vintage cars around? And do you also have the aircrafts? And you're still trying to bridge that gap from breaking the stereotype and becoming a caricature in someone's eyes, because that's how you're sort of portrayed in mainstream media, to suddenly becoming someone and, you know, learning from each other on the best ways to stay relevant, to be impactful, and to make sure that you're continuously building on a legacy that was handed out to you. So, you know, it's a lot of gratitude there, but how do you make it something that's going to last another 100 years? That's all on you. And so thinking outside the box is, you know, is needed. And there's, I mean, a lot of questions came up about the financial aspect. And of course, you know, there is no academic body or research, or, you know, even from a sociological perspective, to understand what really, how do you start the conversation on the futures of these historical properties, because they mean so much to the places they belong to. So what's beautiful really is the knowledge sharing and knowing that you're being part of a network that somehow understands you, and you don't need to sort of live a dual life. You can combine these personalities together and be something that's mirroring what society is today.
Right. So we really hope that, William, you know, I have high hopes that you will be participating in our activities with all of your experience and so on, because we really need this, because we are just building up this network and so on. And we really want to, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because we need to learn from those who have already, you know, experienced it, you know, with all their problems and you know, challenges, and also the you know, the great parts. And thank you. Christiane and Justine, I wanted to ask you, I know I kind of lured you into this and I know you really don't like presentations and so on, but I really hope that, you know, this kind of homely kind of community of those people who have historic houses, who love historic houses, and, you know, want to do something with them. You know, I remember what you said, Christiane, you know, I'm grateful to my grandfather so that I inherited the building, but now we need to get on with it. And I think this is kind of it. Right? Yeah. So I would like to know from you now, you've participated, we have so many different types of properties, even if it's a huge property like Vaux-le-Vicomte, you know, you have, you know, very similar problems, you know, ultimately, you know, what do you do with a fountain from the 17th century, and, you know, very basic things and similar problems. Yeah. So what do you think, you know, from listening to the Indian stories and so on, do you feel that something is inspiring, something is, you know, shared, and you, something that you might try out, or how do you feel about this thing?
I found everything incredibly inspiring, and I'm so embarrassed because I mean, we were totally unprepared, and everyone's story is so different, but then again, there are similarities, you know, in every story. So I found it incredibly inspiring, and I'm really thank you for the opportunity to listen to everybody. It was fantastic.
It was
very, very interesting.
And the young lady who spoke last, I mean, really and truly, it's so true what she said. She really, you know, got it right, and what we feel too, you know, wonderful. Our compliments, we are full of admiration.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. We're a bit speechless, really.
Yes, but one thing, we're going to do a marmalade festival.
Yes, we're going to try that one. We're going to try that one.
We're going to try that one.
Yeah, I see the potential. So I really hope that you'll continue the conversation afterwards. I'll share all of the emails and so on, the profiles. I'll share the little videos and so on, so that you can watch it, and also share some videos of the properties. You have some beautiful short videos from Palazzo Parisio, which I really like. I've often used them for my students to show them, you know, this is how you do it in heritage management. And also Akshitas and so on. I've used Nila House, I've used the presentations and so on. So, and with Nila House, I would really love to do some online workshops, maybe through the center as a forum. I mean, even for our audience in Europe. And I've just, you know, ordered this wonderful ceramics, you know, service from Nila House, and I'm so happy with it. It's really wonderful. Do you actually sell these products in England as well? Because, you know, we've been even thinking about maybe we can have an exchange between the palaces. Maybe, you know, those who have a vineyard or olive oil, they can send some olive oil and wine to us, and we might have tea. You know, William, I know he is also a tea connoisseur. He has a tea. He is blending teas, right, and so on. So there are so many
how interesting.
Opportunities for collaboration. And yes, you have tea in your shop and in your cafe. So I think why not support each other as properties rather than buying from a dealer? You know, I think, you know, this is...
Why not? Yes.
Actually, yes, absolutely. We did a lot for tea. We at least in Malta, introducing fine teas, which was quite something actually. Started 10 years ago, and now everyone appreciates it. And, you know, tea has become such a cultural event, really and truly. And the history behind tea is just Wonderful. I can send you olive oil.
We can send you olive oil because we make it ourselves.
I need olive oil, very much so. I wish I could have cheese because here, I'm not able to buy any cheese there. This is something that I really miss. Right.
We did 100 liters this year. 1,000 liters.
Amazing.
Of olive oil.
Wow.
Yes.
From our grove.
Transportation will be some challenge and so on.
Yes.
But maybe not a glass bottle, but a metal.
Mimi,
and labeling too.
Yes.
Mimi, something which is quite interesting coming out of this, I think, is that all of the houses that have spoken and the families and have all basically done something without necessarily knowing it's going to work.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
it's that self-belief
yeah.
that old houses have, I think, which perhaps because we're all kind of, what's the yield in 3 years, all of that stuff. Old house families don't care about the yield in 3 years. They care about it in 30 years and 300 years. And so because of that, I think we're possibly more willing to try something crazy.
Yes,
and I think that's something that I'm seeing is, we're all prepared to just, let's do pizza deliveries in a pandemic. Why not? Let's do
we tried that. And it worked.
Yeah, right. I know, precisely. So, let's do marmalade festivals. Let's do crazy things like a Paddington Bear picnic, which I've been to before, that sort of thing, because people love it.
Yeah, they do.
It's true.
I think we need an exchange, kind of a list of all of the ideas that people did, some kind of really presentations. I think that's the next thing I want to do, like great innovative responses during the pandemic and so on, which are not necessarily visitor related. I know, William, we've talked about this. I think this is something that would be really helpful. Because some of the ideas have been really great. And I think the challenge, particularly between the digital and revenue generation, that's something that you really achieve with the live streaming of the concerts. I think it's such a beautiful win-win situation where you help the artists, the larger public benefits because they see the palace, they are able to listen to the concert, and you combine it with a delivery service, for example. This is really smart and this is great. So this is something that should be shared, with the other community of owners. So at this time, I'd like to end the discussion. You've been, this has been a real luxury for us to indulge in 2 hours of listening about historic houses. And thanks everyone, especially also the interns from Oxford University for having done such a tremendous job and being so helpful. I mean, I could put almost my feet up on the table, which I don't normally do. It's really lovely. And we must continue this. And I think especially this dialogue, it shouldn't be a national dialogue because these are things that are of concern to all of us. We need to know this and we need to build this up in India to make it into a viable business. We need to have this network of supporters so that we can exchange ideas. I think that's really important. So, and I'm glad, so I hope you'll have the opportunity to listen to some of the other lectures and I'll share some of the videos. We've had amazing also lectures from the Louvre with a little known collection of Asian art, and he showed us objects that are not normally on display. I mean, wonderful things like this. And something that I really appreciated from the director of the Smithsonian for digital learning, he said one of his most important tasks is actually to make a difference to people's lives, to really improve people's lives through this learning through heritage. And this is something I want to emphasize, this kind of positive aspect, that what we do actually really positively impacts, rather than only lamenting or looking at negative things and so on, but, moving forward and building the community and impacting the community and creating this, I always call it a win-win situation for everyone, right? It will help you and the historic house to flourish, but also the larger community. And I think this is great. It's the best job in the world, really, to do something like this. So thank you very much. And wonderful. This was the first attempt of this kind of international panel, anything dealing with historic houses from curation, education, conservation to management. It's really, really wonderful. And I'm really thrilled. I've learned a lot in these past few days.
Mimi, thank you. You've really done a wonderful job, and we're so proud to have had the opportunity to participate, and we hope to be able to do so many more times. And better too.
And I can't wait to visit Palazzo Parisio. After all of these years, I've never been able to visit. And last time I was in Italy, so I must really, really come next time.
I wish you would. We do an excellent cup of tea. Okay. Bye.
Thank you all so much.
Bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.